Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have all of you here for our discussion on mastering vulnerability assessment, vulnerability management in 2025. So we will look at exploring current trends, challenges that you face when you're implementing or have implemented a vulnerability management program, or why you should have a vulnerability management program to begin with. And then move on to strategies for having an effective vulnerability management program. I hope at the end of the session you're able to enhance your organization security posture and you have actionable insights out of this. So before we begin, I would like to introduce Accorian. Who's Accorian? So we are a leading cybersecurity firm dedicated to helping organizations improve the security through tailored program, right? We partner with businesses of all sizes, from startups to large enterprises, for various services tailored to each client's requirement or unique challenges that security challenges that they face. So we have our security strategy and consulting service, which includes virtual CISO support, risk assessments, basically all consultative security work. We also have a compliance service where we provide we help with compliances such as HITRAS, SOC 2, ISOs, readiness assessments, basically helping organizations navigate through complex regulatory requirements. And then in the realm of pen testing, we conduct extensive assessments, including security assessments for applications, network, mobile applications, APIs, red team assessment. We also help with social engineering simulations, basically ensuring that our clients are equipped to defend themselves from both external and internal threat actors. All right, so here's a brief of what we're going to cover today. First, we will go through our observations of what we've seen in 2024 and evaluate how vulnerability management program works. Then we will address the top challenges that organizations face in managing vulnerabilities. We will then dive into emerging trends which are impacting or are game changers in a vulnerability management program in 2025, and we'll discuss what to expect. And also we'll discuss about maturity roadmap for security practices. We'll also look at a case study where we successfully implemented a vulnerability management program. Also, in the end, we'll try and have a Q&A session, so feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box. All right, so talking about what we observed in 2024, right? The landscape of vulnerability management has definitely evolved significantly. And this has been a year-on-year trend, right? So evolution is the key. We learn, we get better. So what we've seen, or we've observed a significant increase, about 15% increase in the number of vulnerabilities we identified compared to 2023. So what does this mean, right? The increase basically underscores the complexities organizations are facing in vulnerability management. So we always hear these terms, right? Evolving threat landscape, increased complexity. So what do they mean? Or what causes these complexities? So basically, it's the push for digital transformation and being up to date with technology, using the latest tech stack, etc. So while these are really essential to keep up to date and for growth, they also introduce newer vulnerabilities, newer security challenges, which you wouldn't have, which are unforeseen in the previous, when you're using a previous technology. So as you move, your security challenges also become newer. Also, hybrid environments, usage of legacy systems, uh, and then prioritizing compliance over compliance requirements over security sort of adds a multitude of layers and layers of complexities. So this is what we mean with ever evolving threat landscape and stuff. Another significant concern is the alarming stats that we see, that over 35% of critical and high-risk vulnerabilities that are detected remain unresolved even for over 6 months. You know that a critical risk issue exists, but you're not fixing them. This could be because of lack of resource or lack of prioritization or inefficient prioritization or remediation process. We also saw that more than 60% of vulnerabilities were found in web applications. So most of these web app related vulnerabilities stem from coding practices or insecure coding practices. These are often linked to lack of security integration in the SDLC itself. Say, for example, you're using uh, uh, outdated components or libraries. And lack of secure coding guideline or following these standards could lead to serious vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting or SQL injection attacks. So organizations must implement security measure from the initial design phase itself all the way through deployment and maintenance. Typically, that's what is shift left in security. Additionally, approximately 20% of vulnerabilities were cloud-related or network-related misconfigurations, showing that network or cloud still continues to be a significant focus area for security. So these could be misconfigurations that range from overly permissive access control or giving additional access, temporarily finding you need something on an ad hoc basis, so you've quickly granted someone permission instead of taking the longer route. And then you forget to revoke access, allowing attackers to exploit vulnerabilities with much ease, right? So in response to these challenges, a lot of organizations are adopting a zero trust framework, which means that the systems within the network will no longer trust one another. So there will be rigorous access control and verification process. So top challenges in vulnerability management. What are the key challenges that organization encounter, right? Legacy system being, predominantly seen everywhere. Approximately 70% of the organizations still depend on older systems or legacy systems or outdated systems where patches are no longer being supported or sent. So they become the prime target for any attacker or any attack. A significant number of data breaches, when you do a RCA or go back and look at what happened, it's always traced back to vulnerabilities in unsupported software that the organization either did not update or basically there was no update because it's a legacy system. So this is what usually is the primary reason. Or say meeting SLAs, the sheer number of vulnerabilities that are identified, it becomes very difficult to track and remediate them. So stats say that 30% of identified vulnerabilities just linger around because there are no resources. So organization must balance between operational demands and prioritizing vulnerabilities and remediating them. Implementation of compensatory control, while this is really great to mitigate or reduce risk, but in most cases, when you're unable to completely mitigate risk, in order to reduce, there are compensatory controls that come in place which are meant to be temporary, but then organizations rely so heavily on it because at that point the risk seems like it has been remediated, if not completely resolved. So then remediation itself takes a backseat. So this again exposes organizations or make the organization at high risk uh, for keeping a certain vulnerability open. Asset inventory management. So having the asset inventory itself, which is comprehensive, is a significant challenge which we've seen across organizations. They'll have incomplete inventories, having shadow IT or unmanaged assets. So what would essentially happen is this way companies would overlook vulnerabilities in devices that are not accounted for, or asset that is not accounted or unmanaged. The threats just go undetected for these. Patching and remediation. So effective patch management in itself is a challenge. Patches could be delayed due to many reasons, right? Because software compatibility issues, or you haven't tested or not having enough time to test the patches. So these lead to delaying patches, because of which remediation of issues also get delayed, allowing the window that an attacker has to exploit the vulnerability also is longer. And then you have the DevSecOps pipeline integration. So this basically is nothing but creating a seamless integration of security practice into CI/CD pipeline. But sounds easy, but it can be complex because security checks, they usually become a bottleneck in the entire development process. You're in this agile world today where you want to just develop functionalities and get them out in production, and then identifying security issues will be a showstopper. So having an automated security check would mean longer release cycles. Testing and scanning cadence. Establishing an effective testing cadence is really important. If an organization is performing periodic, say annually or biannual assessment, that means that the detection, there is a window of 11 months approximately, if you take from the scan completion to the next scan, for a vulnerability to be identified. So continuous testing becomes really critical in order to address vulnerabilities proactively. So continuing on the top trends, we have risk-based prioritization, which really stands out. So what we mean by risk-based prioritization is say, for example, there's a vulnerability in an external facing application as opposed to a vulnerability in a internal facing application. As an organization, I would prioritize to fix, I mean, it's a straightforward example, but I would prioritize to remediate the issue which on the external facing application higher than the one internal, because the attack surface is more. The threat actor, it has significant reputational damage if I were to get breached from the outside. So basically, I would prioritize based on asset criticality and the threat landscape itself. So next is use of automated patch management. Uh, it's one another key trend. Companies have seen remarkable efficiency gains when using automated, deployment of patches as opposed to manually or not using an automated way of patch deployment, which means if it's an automated way, then the time reduced would be significant. I would be able to deploy patches in hours as opposed to days together. So, especially in sectors like finance, fintech, healthcare, where the rapid response is really essential, it would mitigate a lot of risk if patching is on point and up to date. Moving on to SEA, it has become vital as well, given that most applications are now using open source libraries. Uh, Organizations must continuously scan these components for known vulnerabilities. One of the recent breaches, highlighted how it is really critical to have SEA in place to know if libraries with known vulnerabilities are present and keeping them up to date. Software bill of materials, or SBOM, as you say, is a standard practice for managing software supply chain at this point, especially any concerns regarding third-party software vulnerabilities, the kind of attention that has grabbed in the recent times. I think all of us understand how important having SBOM is, and actively tracking each of these components to ensure that the vulnerabilities are addressed quickly and almost in real time. And then integration with threat insight. So this is how organizations are transforming their vulnerability management, quite honestly. So now you have risk-based prioritization, and you have priority of what you need to remediate, but getting active intelligence or live intelligence threat intel feed to correlate the vulnerabilities with active exploits, or to know what exploits are being actively worked on by bad actors, plays a vital role in prioritization as well. So a lot of firms adjust its priorities based on real-time intelligence that specific vulnerability in their software. If they see that is being actively exploited, then I would rather prioritize that over another vulnerability. DevSecOps practices, again, something that's really trending. We touched upon it. So this allows the team to identify and remediate vulnerabilities earlier in the development cycle. So before the code is deployed and is sent to production. So by incorporating automated tools like SaaS tools, DAS tools, earlier in the development cycle, we're able to identify these vulnerabilities in real time, and of course, way before any attacker is able to exploit it. Automation and AI adoption. I think in today's day and age, AI is integral. So even in a vulnerability management process, it is going to be revolutionary. Uh, the kind of data, so AI tools, the key thing that they provide is their power to analyze extensive data sets for certain patterns, or also being able to predict emerging vulnerabilities based on what they already know, would definitely help in prioritizing vulnerabilities. Also, zero trust implementation. So the zero trust model is gaining traction as organizations implement continuous verification, validation measures. So it's not going to trust anybody. The model in itself will want to validate access through and through again. So it's not going to assume that just because a device is from within the network, I'm allowed to give access or share any detail. So it will significantly reduce any risk of unauthorized access. And then performing a regular security architecture review. So continuous testing is going to be a key. Usually architecture reviews are thought of as one and done, but it never is the key, especially with how the digital transformation is happening. So it is going to be important to regularly review the application, the architecture of the application, the cloud configuration, infrastructure setups, and then holistically building a defense in depth strategy. Moving on, simulated attack exercises or red team assessments, if we may. So basically what we're trying to do here is simulating real world attacks, which would provide organizations insights into vulnerabilities, of course, but also how prepared an organization is for a potential breach. So in it would actually simulate what an attacker will do, and how, and correlating the tests with the in events and logs and incidents that are raised internally by the security devices would allow an organization to understand how the response mechanism is, how effective it is, and of course improvement areas on that front. Another key area is reporting and dashboarding. So accurate reporting, one of the biggest challenges that all organizations face is tracking vulnerabilities to closure. So accurate reporting and tailored dashboard allows is going to be key to communicate the status of or the progress of vulnerability management, and also the how well the VM program is doing, the KPIs, whether they're being met, how effective it is. They basically will highlight risk and help track remediation. This also fosters in making decisions with data. The exec team would be able to make all decisions with timely decisions can be taken. All right. So as we look forward to 2025 now, effective vulnerability management will require a good, robust program, right? We'll talk about some KPIs that will become, or that could be a benchmark for a successful vulnerability management program. One of them would be mean time to remediate. So what it means is the average time for remediation of critical issues, or any typically any issue, right? For critical issue, we say that it should not be over 30 days. But basically, meeting the SLAs, any critical or high, for sure, not more than 30 days, but meeting the SLAs for how long, within what period you should remediate any issue. This can only happen if you're tracking this. So in this agile world where we're trying to build new functionalities and just get new functionalities out, it would prevent many vulnerabilities from being exploited if you're also fixing security issues and reducing or shortening your mean time to remediate. Vulnerability resolution rate would be another, where say you have 10 vulnerabilities and you have only resolved 2. So the vulnerability resolution rate would be 20%. So an organization should aim for at least 90% of vulnerabilities to be resolved within the SLA. So we did work with a large healthcare provider in implementing their vulnerability management program, and we saw a significant drop in their incident volume itself. So, which goes out to say that if your vulnerability resolution rate is great, which means you're resolving your vulnerabilities within your SLA, that means the attack the time duration that an attacker would have to exploit a certain vulnerability is much lesser, which means it will significantly reduce the number of incidents that you see as well. So that could be one of the key KPIs when you're having a vulnerability management program. Next is having a clear asset inventory is vital. So we talked about it earlier. Asset inventory is going to be a key component in a VM program. So you must commit to scanning 100% of all of the assets that are exposed. We've had examples where sometimes there are static pages, so on a subdomain, nothing else. So then you assume that there's nothing here, so why test it? Because it's just static page, not accepting any input. But we've also seen certain kinds of exploit because of the framework being used, or because of the web server that is there, which has vulnerabilities, in them. So it could be anything. It doesn't have to be dynamic pages only, for example. So ensuring that all of the assets are being tested regularly is also going to be a key component. So, all right, next would be the time to detect vulnerabilities, right? So this could be tricky, but the aim should be that you're able to detect all vulnerabilities within 1 to 7 days of it being known publicly. So what we mean is identifying known vulnerabilities and aligning with best practice within 1 to 7 days of it being identified. So for a tech company, we tailored its detection mechanism, and with that, it significantly reduced their discovery time in half. So in turn, what happened was they were able to also take remedial actions timely. Another key component here would be security awareness training. This should be part of the vulnerability management program itself. So emphasizing the need for ongoing education to prevent human error, which of course remains one of the most common entry point for attackers. We've seen organizations that invest in regular training have reported a significant decline in the number of incidents related to social engineering or attacks, or where employees are used as attack vectors. So the maturity, how do you evolve, right? Maturity roadmap is going to be a very powerful tool for organizations that are looking to enhance their vulnerability management practices. So to begin with, we'll start with the initial stage. Here, typically, these are organizations that have very basic systems in place, maybe just a simple asset inventory in an Excel sheet, and reports could be Word, and then all of the reports tracked on an Excel sheet, and so on and so forth. So as we move from the initial stage to a developed stage, companies will start looking at a more regular scan as opposed to an annual pen test or annual scan. So one fast growing startup for who we developed periodic scanning cadence noticed significant improvement in their vulnerability detection rate, because the scans were not annual or just quarterly, right? We were doing it more periodically, more in line with their release cycles. So every time before it would hit production, we were scanning them. So it allowed them to identify and mitigate issues sooner. As we develop and move to the established stage, organizations have comprehensive asset inventories. So again, the key factor would be having a comprehensive asset inventory. So it is important that attack surface or asset are continuously kept up to date. So once they had once there is a comprehensive asset inventory and continuous testing processes, you start getting a hang of prioritizing and creating roadmaps. So we worked with a client and developed a formal vulnerability management program where we also set up cadence for vulnerability scanning, improved the response time significantly by incorporating a plan, and also having buy-in from the whole of the department head, so the remediation becomes easier. It's important that you have your ELTs buy-in for your vulnerability management program. That's where dashboarding, reporting, and all of that comes in play, where you're able to show metrics, where you're able to show KPI for what you've achieved from when you were in the initial stage to, say, an advanced level, right? Finally, the optimized stage. Here, this would be for larger organizations where you're using AI-driven assessments and automated process that would allow you to stay much ahead of potential threats itself. So you're not just reactive to vulnerabilities being identified or incidents happening. You with AI and its predictive capability, it will allow you to be more reactive. So from the studies and the research we've been doing, we believe that AI solutions could anticipate potential security threats using AI-driven analytics. This would drastically reduce risk exposure. Right. We're also doing some research on this front. Although it's in a very nascent stage, we are seeing some results that are extremely encouraging. We will continue to, work on this. But yeah, using AI, the biggest advantage would be that it enables you to predict, looks at historical data, and enables you to predict what the potential threats could be. We'll now look at a case study. So we did develop a vulnerability management program for a financial services provider that really stepped up in their vulnerability management game with the whole program. So the organization was initially kind of struggling with asset inventory itself across its environment. Especially when we stepped in for the vulnerability management program, because they were in middle of a digital transformation. So as a result, when they ended up performing security assessment across their assets, after a comprehensive asset and attack surface discovery, the test uncovered, I think, about 800 vulnerabilities across all assets. So the number itself sounds quite scary, right? So it's how do you prioritize? How do you remediate these issues? Identifying issues is one aspect, but then what do you do with them? Uh, Along with while in the process, there was also an incident tied to a phishing attack that had an impact both on their reputation, of course, and the bottom line. So, to tackle these issues, we worked with them to completely revamp their strategy in vulnerability management. We started by conducting a detailed asset inventory and also attack surface discovery, where you're able to understand, scrape through the internet and get all of the assets that belong to the client. And we bought in automated scanning tools as well. So with automation in place, they were able to stay ahead of the threat landscape. Uh, we also bought in dashboarding and helped them with risk-based prioritization. And because we were working with them so closely, we had context. We were able to aid them with prioritization. So within, I think, about 6 to 8 months, their mean time to remediate the vulnerabilities reduced drastically. It was 18 to 20 days, which even beats the industry standard. They also with we also did a lot of social engineering activities and educational security awareness trainings. So the security incidents also slashed quite a bit. So it the entire case study or the story highlights not just the value of having a structured program, but also how uh, they can how they can how having a structured program can actually significantly make you safer in the real world. So you also have metrics, you have data to back you up when you have great reporting and dashboarding in place. Also, research substantiates this claim that having a structured program allows organizations to mature the vulnerability management program. And these such organizations with structured programs, the odds or the probability reduces drastically, for any security breach. I think it says 45% reduction in fewer data breaches in organizations that have a structured program itself. So this is what I had for you today. All right. Thank you very much for your time. You have a great rest of the day.